In the opening scenes, we see an empty road lined with many chairs. A man holding 2 bundles of binoculars waits for someone. A car appears, knocking over all the chairs in its path, and stops beside the man. Lieutenant Chad climbs out of the trunk and addresses the viewers, discussing how all popular movies contain an element of randomness. Some things in movies happen simply because the director wanted it to. Lieutenant Chad and his colleague drive away. Afterward, the man distributes binoculars to a group of people. If the car hadn't knocked over the chairs, the people would have sat down for comfort. Wishing everyone to enjoy the spectacle, the man, whom we'll call Accountant, rides away on a bicycle. The people continue to peer through the binoculars, but nothing interesting is happening yet. All they see ahead is a landfill. Suddenly a car tire lying in the sand on the landfill starts moving on its own. The tire tries to roll a certain distance but keeps falling over. Finally, after several attempts, the tire, having gained its own will, sets off across the steppe past dried bushes. Whether this journey is aimless or has some meaning remains unknown. The tire encounters a plastic bottle discarded by someone, and stops. But when it eventually crushes the bottle, there was a satisfying crackle. The next victim of the tire is a scorpion, but it clearly has no intention of stopping there. This time a glass bottle lies on the ground. The tire struggles to crush the glass, as if it's a challenge. At some point the tire trembles, and through telekinesis shatters the bottle. The spectators watching through binoculars find the tire's telekinetic abilities astonishing. What else is it capable of? Some of the viewers don't like that many are commenting on the movie aloud or filming it, as piracy is prohibited. All these people indeed refer to what's happening as a movie. The tire continued its journey until it encountered a tin can. With it the tire did the same thing as with the bottle earlier. Its strength grows. It's already sunset, and the tire rolls aimlessly through the steppe. As twilight falls, it lies down beside a tree as if falling asleep. Morning comes, and the tire gets up, then sets off again. Accountant returned to wake up the viewers who had fallen asleep right on the ground. But before that, he robbed some of them. Accountant urged everyone to continue watching the movie, which they did, and the man left again. Some were outraged that breakfast wasn't provided, even though everyone present wanted to eat. The tire stopped by a puddle, then suddenly noticed a rabbit, and activating its telekinetic power, destroyed the animal. Then the tire rolled forward again to cheerful music. The incident with the rabbit inspired it. Finally the tire rolled out onto the highway. A girl drove by in a car, unaware that something was carefully watching her. Using its super strength, the tire turned off the car's engine and rolled towards the girl, but didn't notice another car speeding towards it. As a result, the tire was thrown to the side of the road. After starting the car, Sheila drove on, and the tire got up. To quench its thirst, the tire got rid of a bird. Next we see a man refueling his car. The passing girl honked at him. The man wanted to use a payphone. The tire rolled up from behind. The phone didn't work, and the man sat in his car, then suddenly noticed the tire, which began to tremble. The man barely had time to understand anything because his life was cut short. This delighted the audience. The tire rolled forward along the road. A police car drove by. The game was just beginning. The tire stopped by an old motel. Room 15 was slightly open, and the tire rolled inside. The room is rented by some girl. The viewers enjoyed watching the tire spying on people. Everyone eagerly awaited what would happen next. Some people again began to protest about others commenting on the movie out loud. They might miss the most interesting parts. It turned out to be the same girl from the road, Sheila. In the evening she called the mother, informing her that she would spend the night at the motel. The girl was about to sleep, but the television next door was playing too loudly. In reality it was the tire flipping channels. Some of the viewers were also preparing to sleep, asking others to wake them up if they missed anything important. Some couldn't sleep because of hunger. The event organizer failed to provide them with food. Due to the noise from the neighboring room, Sheila couldn't fall asleep. Meanwhile, Accountant was shining his shoes. The phone rang and Accountant answered the call, receiving instructions from his boss to do something in the morning. At dawn it was quiet in the steppe. Accountant left his room, allowing the cleaning lady to tidy up there. The man in the wheelchair continued to look through the binoculars. Accountant appeared bringing food. People started eating the turkey raw and fighting over it. Everyone except man in wheelchair, who called them animals. The maid entered room 16 for cleaning. There were tire tracks on the sheets. Hearing the sound of running water, the cleaning lady named Martina entered the bathroom and saw the tire in the shower cabin. Thinking it was a silly prank by the guests, Martina threw the tire outside. But the girl didn't know that it wasn't just a tire. It rolled back into the room. A boy saw the door to room 16 locked from the inside. The boy told his father that he had just seen a living tire. Of course the father didn't believe him, but the boy kept insisting that it wasn't a fabrication. The father gave the son some money and told him to go get pizza. Having completed its revenge, the tire watched a nature documentary film, then observed Sheila again, swimming in the pool. The tire dreams of reaching her. Sheila didn't pay attention to the tire, simply walking past. As the boy returned home with a pizza, he passed by a hitchhiker who was shocked to see the boy, upon noticing bird remains on the road, putting it in the pizza box. It was revenge on his father. The tire rolled up to the pool and dipped into the water. The audience began to feel unwell and suspected that the event organizer had poisoned them. Man in wheelchair was the only one who didn't eat the turkey, so he didn't experience these symptoms. The boy was curious about what happened in room 16 of the motel, so he went inside and witnessed a horrifying sight. Sheila, who was having a snack at the cafe, saw several police cars driving by. The girl went to check what was going on. Apparently something terrible had occurred. The boy told Lieutenant Chad that the tire was living. The father, the motel owner, told his son to stop this nonsense and get the tire out of the pool. The boy kept insisting on his truth, which angered the father. Lieutenant asked Mr. Hugh to tell about Martina, the maid. Hugh said that she did her job well, and they had normal business relations. After receiving a signal from his watch, the lieutenant said that they had poisoned the audience, and the poison should have already taken effect. Hugh's assistance in the investigation would no longer be needed. Hugh didn't understand what was happening. The audience lay lifeless on the ground. All except man in wheelchair. Lieutenant Chad announced to his colleagues that they could all go home because the audience was no longer watching them. The officers were puzzled, while Chad continued to insist that none of it was real. To prove his point, Chad ordered Daisy to take a gun and shoot. She refused, but another officer fired, and not just once. But the wounds appeared to be fake, and Chad was unharmed. However, the police officers were still not ready to let the situation go, especially since no one knew what to do with the body. Chad said that everything was fine with the maid, but Daisy disagreed with him after checking the bag. In her opinion, the body was very real. Accountant approached Chad and said that one of the viewers was alive and still watching them, so they should continue the show. Getting himself together, Chad told his colleagues to forget everything he said. After that, Chad came to talk to Hugh again, who was shocked by the wounds. The lieutenant asked him not to pay attention to it. Hugh had nothing else to add to what he had previously said during the interrogation. The men didn't see how the tire started moving. Hugh mentioned that Martina had a chubby brother. A minute later, the tire took Hugh's life with telekinetic force. The lieutenant realized that the boy was telling the truth. Meanwhile, the tire, encountering a mirrored surface, began to examine itself. Now it not only possesses self-awareness but also memories. How did the tire end up on the landfill? Was it previously part of a car's wheel? Unafraid, the boy spoke to the tire, asking if it could talk. But the tire clearly wasn't in the mood for conversation and rolled away. After removing a tire from a certain vehicle, Chad announced to his colleagues that this is what the criminal they were looking for looks like. They don't have much time to catch it. The boy ran up and said in which direction the tire had gone. Man in wheelchair continues to observe through binoculars. Accountant brought him plenty of food. The man only said, "Thank you," but didn't eat anything. Accountant tried to entice him with dessert, saying that hunger is bad for health, but the man responded more rudely. He just wants to finish watching the movie. The tire rolls down the road pursued by the police. When the car caught up with it, the tire used telekinetic force to destroy one of the officers. Accountant himself began to eat, talking about his childhood. The man still refused dessert and everything else. At some point, Accountant felt unbearable pain in his stomach and began to scream. He completely forgot that the food had been poisoned. Accountant begged the man for help, but he did nothing. A few minutes later, Accountant stopped moving, and the man continued to watch the exciting movie. The tire rolled forward, and suddenly it was drawn to a fire. Workers were burning dozens of tires, with black acrid smoke coming from it. 3 days passed. There wasn't a single living person left in the nearest town, and it was all because of the tire. The pursuit of the officers for the tire was unsuccessful. Suddenly they noticed the criminal in one of the houses. It was watching races on TV. The police immediately called for backup. Lieutenant Chad headed to the scene. As bait, it was decided to use a mannequin resembling Sheila. The police rigged it with explosives and began to wait for the tire to take the bait. The mannequin had a microphone embedded in it, so the tire could hear Sheila's voice, urging it to roll closer. However, the tire suspected something and hesitated to use its telekinetic power to destroy the mannequin. Chad and Sheila were interrupted by man in wheelchair, who said that this scene made no sense. He wondered why they didn't use, for example, a flamethrower. Chad objected, saying the plan was for the tire to destroy the mannequin and trigger the dynamite. That way the tire would eliminate itself. The man asked them to speed up the action. Everyone was extremely irritated because if the man had eaten the turkey, none of them would be here at all. The tire eventually destroyed the doll, but for some reason the dynamite still didn't go off. Unable to bear it, Chad was about to deal with the tire himself. This spectacle bored man in wheelchair. After firing several shots, Chad destroyed the tire. It seemed like that should be the end of it. The man was extremely dissatisfied with this ending. Suddenly he noticed that the tire had transformed into a child's tricycle. The man told the tricycle not to approach because he wasn't a character in this movie, just a viewer. But the tricycle still got rid of the man. Chad left Sheila on the highway and drove away. Sheila got into her car and saw the tricycle pass by. It continued to ride along empty roads and streets. At some point, the tricycle passed by tires, which also gained its own will and followed it. From now on, the objects would ride along the roads and destroy everything in its path. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.